Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dan McHenrick. I'm one of the individuals that are on the Leadership Resource Committee that's putting together these Zoom sessions and series. As you just heard the announcement from Zoom, this session will be recorded. But I just want to give you a heads up of why we're doing this. So the main reason why we're recording this is for future Zoom sessions advertising about what we're doing. Maybe have some snippets of this. But at the end of this presentation that Hillary and Stephanie will be having today, we're going to end the recording at that point in time and open up for question and answers. So if you don't feel comfortable asking a question while being recorded, we want to encourage you to ask questions so we're not recording, so you feel more comfortable doing that. So I just wanted to give a heads up as you're entering the Zoom room when you see that recording. We will turn that off when we turn into more of a discussion format for this. But again, welcome. This is the session entitled Your Pathway to PBA Leadership, Invite, Invest, and Inspire. And this really Zoom series, this first session is a series that we're hoping to do, and this is the introduction to it. This was spearheaded by the Leadership Resource Committee, and that's one of the goals of these Zoom sessions is to introduce the Leadership Resource Committee, and if you're not aware of it, because this committee was created to encourage individuals, give resources, and meet up with all PBA members to encourage them to get involved and to see what their pathway to leadership may be and provide resources and support for your leadership journey. Another thing that the Leadership Resource Committee does is publish and update regularly the PBA Guide to Leadership. And as an attendee of this event, not only it was put in the chat here, but also you'll get an email afterwards with all these resources that the committee has created for you. We encourage you to take advantage of it. We encourage you to read that to become more familiar with it. And also, part of this Zoom series is to be semi-formal, where we present some information to you, but at the same time have an informal setting where we can talk openly about, the issues that you may have, other examples of sessions you may be interested in hearing about, what specific things of the PBA or specific leadership traits or skills that you might find valuable. We can talk about those things. For today, this is the start off. This is the first session that we're trying this. To my knowledge, this hasn't been done similarly like this before. So we also want to hear from you of what you want, what you want out of from the PBA in terms of support through leadership. And that's the second part of this presentation is that Q&A. And we have no kind of long structured time for this. So if we want to end it early, we can end it early. There's no pressure on anyone to raise questions if you don't want to. But afterwards, when you get the email from the committee introducing ourselves and our contact information, we also would encourage you to reach out if you do have questions at any point in time. So if you don't feel comfortable asking it during this Zoom session, you'll have our contact information as well, and you can reach out at later times. But for today, the goal of the session, as I mentioned, is to introduce this series. And we're going to start off with Stephanie and Hillary introducing themselves and a little bit about their pathway to leadership. And then I'll round up talking a little bit about how I got involved in the PBA. And the purpose of this really is what I find so fascinating and exciting about the Pennsylvania Bar Association is because there are so many different avenues that you can take advantage to get into leadership. You don't have to run for president right away, to be a leader. There's a lot of different ways to get involved in the PBA, very, very small ways, very, very large ways. And we're talking about all the different pathways that we have. And here's 3 different perspectives of how you can get involved. And then also, we want to build connections and build relationships. So you see our faces, you hear us talking, and we have a conversation afterwards. That hopefully will make you feel more comfortable reaching out to us afterwards if you do have those questions. So that's really the main purpose of today's session. And we have some exciting sessions planned in the future as well. So this is the first time I want to plug the future of the Zoom session. It's scheduled right now, so put it on your calendars and don't forget. This will be moderated by Stephanie on December 3rd. And that is going to be entitled Starting Strong on Your PBA Leadership Journey. And this is going to be, that session primarily is going to focus on pathways for young lawyers to get involved. What does the PBA offer, the support systems that they have, and it's going to have some really heavy hitters within the PBA attending that event. So we're really excited. You might potentially see some PBA presidents on there, current president there, and some other individuals to talk. So it's going to be really, really exciting. And it's also going to be that semi-formal session. So you have the opportunity to ask questions during the time. So that really is the introduction of what the Zoom series is and what the future plan out to be. And at the end of the session, again, if you have ideas that you want to hear, you want to see, please let us know, because we can be adaptable through this series and really try to make this as valuable as possible for you. So without further ado, first I'd like to send it to Stephanie's way. So ultimately, the first part of this, as I mentioned, is for each of us to introduce ourselves, share a little bit about how we got involved in the PBA, and a little bit of our leadership journey. And then I'll probably ask some questions from time to time based on how the conversation goes. So Stephanie, if you'd like to introduce yourself and take it away.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Lattimore, and I've been involved with the PBA for over 30 years now. It goes fast. My path to leadership, I would have to say, I had just realized my childhood dream. I knew in ninth grade that I wanted to go to law school. And once I became an attorney, I had my job, and then I wanted to look for things to do. So I came across some type of notice 30 years ago. I sure did not come through the internet, but some type of notice about the Minority Bar Committee was holding a conference in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. So I attended, and I happened to sit. I don't know how it happened, but I was seated at the table with Bob Feeback, who was the current president at the time. He said to me, talked to me. Found out I was a new attorney, a new attorney, and he said, "I'm going to get you on this committee." I didn't even know about the committee. I just attended the conference, and then my leadership journey started from there. He appointed me to that committee. I joined the committee. I participated in the committee, so I ended up chairing the committee. So that was my path to leadership. But along the way, like I said, over 30 years, I've held many different positions. So I would have to say, as I was thinking about this, I knew we were going to talk about this. I thought of like three things that I found over these years that helped. Your presence. So being in the room, you have to be in the room where it happens. So that was part of it. Just showing up. You have to be persistent. And I don't mean be a pest, but I think you have to find where you fit in. You have to find your people and where your skills and take you. That's what I think is important. And patience. Just like life, leadership is a long game. You're in it for the long haul. I had a lot of opportunities as a young lawyer. Like I said, I was chair of the Minority Bar Committee. I ended up chairing that conference a couple times. That's where I started, chairing the conference, because it made such an impact on my life. That's one of the first leadership positions I had, was chairing the Minority Bar Conference for a couple of years. I got involved in the YLD. I became involved in the ABA. I was a YLD delegate to the ABA. That is a wonderful position. You get to travel the United States. They go all over the place. As a delegate, I got to sit in the room with, at that time, Hillary Clinton was just starting, out, and got a chance to meet her as part of being a YLD, delegate as a female. That was really important. PBI was a separate entity at that time, not necessarily separate, but they had their own leadership structure. So I was also served as PBA president. PBI president, that's the legal education arm of the PBA. Involved in the WIP, which is the Women in the Profession, the JEC, which is the Judicial Evaluation Committee, Statutory Law Committee, government lawyers, like so many different things. So we'll talk more about that later. But as you see, as if you're a young lawyer starting out, there's so many places to start, but that doesn't mean where you land. Like, I was heavily involved in Minority Bar Committee. I'm still involved today, but my leadership skills have gone different places. So like I said, it's a long game. You don't want to, burn yourself out right away. And we'll talk more about that later. So hopefully I answered your question, Dan.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah. And so, that's just one pathway to start. So now I'd like to shift gears to Hillary. If you could introduce yourself a little bit.
Sure.
And talk about your pathway of how you got involved in the PBA.
So I'm a family lawyer, and that's really how I started getting involved in the PBA. the family law section in particular is very active, and I'm very passionate about what I do, but I also grew up with a great passion for service and volunteering. It's sort of how I was raised. My parents were very active in the community, and as a younger attorney, I knew I wanted to continue to do that. And I knew I wanted to continue to kind of give back in some way. I didn't really know how to do that. I was involved with my county bar, but PBA is my first love. I think because it's where I started my leadership journey. And I basically initially got involved just going to family law section meetings and meeting different people. And then, I join a committee or be asked to join a committee, and then from being on one committee to being on a next committee, then I think leaders recognize other leaders or what other leaders have. And so I think once people see that you're committed, and I think like Stephanie just said, presence, right? Be present, show up. And once people see that you're there and you are present, they'll ask you, they'll come, they want people who are willing to assist and lead. And became chairs of different committees within the family law section, ended up on the family law section council. And from there ended up after, like Stephanie said, the long game. It's, I'm also 30 years into practice, and I just finished 2 years ago my stint as chair of the family law section, but that's a ladder. So you're on council for a couple years, so you kind of see the inner workings, right? So I come at it more from a section perspective, a little bit different than Stephanie did. But as I sort of took on that role as chair, I realized there's so much more to the PBA. And this is at my point after 30 years of practice. And now I'm becoming involved in other aspects of PBA, like the Leadership Resource Committee, just getting involved in WHIP, which is something I didn't do before, but I've met people and I want to be involved. So I'm getting involved that way. I've realized things that I like to do more with like civility and that sort of thing. So I'm just, even at this point in my career, sort of starting my path that way as well.
That's excellent. And that's a great point too, is because, as you get more involved, your pathway can change and you can get into different avenues, because as I spoke to earlier, that's the exciting thing about the Pennsylvania Bar Association, of how many diverse opportunities and how many different ways you can get involved. So now I'll take a little bit to share a little bit about my pathway. And I really fell into leadership, and some individuals seek it out and go right to it. For me specifically, I moved to Center County, right there in the middle of the state. Now I work for Penn State Student Legal Services. But when I first moved here, I worked for the local district attorney's office. And moving here, I didn't know anyone in the area. And literally, I went to the Bar Association to meet people, to meet friends, to make connections with individuals. I got involved in the Young Lawyers Division at the county level here in Center County. We did tons of great events that I really enjoyed going to. We had a softball team, the happy hour type meetings and things like that. And in Center County, we've kind of had ebbs and flows of involvement. But that's really what initially got me started. And so attending Bar Association events, being in the DA's office, meeting lots of different attorneys in the area, there was a local defense attorney who invited me to join the Center County Board of Governors. So I really came from the county level. So I got involved in the county Board of Governors here in Center County, got involved. And how Center County kind of operates is if you show up, you're going to be asked to do things, so, and there was one time that it still resonates with me today. I share this all the time, but there's a local attorney here in Center County, Al Jones, that was heavily involved in the Pennsylvania Bar Association. He was heavily involved in the Center County Bar Association. And one of our winter gatherings, I went up to him and asked a question like, how do you do it? Like, how do you get involved in all those things? And his answer was so concise, so simple. It just kind of floored me. And it was just say yes. That's all I did was say yes. When people came up, starting out, they asked him to join a committee, do at a certain event. He said yes, he got involved. And then over time, you have to learn how to say no, because you'll have to start prioritizing what's going on. But at least when you're starting out, it's that importance of what Stephanie and Hillary both said, is show up, say yes, participate. And that really stuck with me of how succinct he was. And so around all the same time, I started elevating within the Center County Bar Association, eventually became president of the Center County Bar Association in 2016. And from that experience, I was able to meet different people within the PBA. One of which is Susan Etter, who's on the Zoom today, and she brought up Conference of County Bar Leaders. I attended the Conference of County Bar Leaders as a Center County Bar president. And if you're not familiar with the Conference of County Bar Leaders, this is an event that's held every single late February, early March, and it's a conference designed to help leaders of county level to mingle with the Pennsylvania Bar Association, know about different issues, everyone to connect, network, and know what each county is doing to kind of support each other, and help all the county associations thrive, and also work together with the Pennsylvania Bar Association. And when Susan invited me to apply for consideration to be on the executive committee of the Conference County Bar Leaders, I applied and was lucky enough to get in. It is an 8-year commitment, which can sound a little scary when you first hear it, but I can appreciate that. And I did have those kind of thoughts initially, but once I started getting more involved, meeting people within the committee, it was just such an invaluable experience. And from that moment on, I just got hooked with the Pennsylvania Bar Association. And so from those opportunities, I was able to be invited to become a member of the House of Delegates, the legislative arm of the PBA. And now currently I'm Zone 11, and Zone 11 covers Center County, Clinton County, Cameron County, Potter County, and Elk County. I'm the Zone 11 Board of Governor for our representative. So that's kind of how I got into it. And it sounds kind of like I fell into it, because I kind of did. It was really more of a social aspect that it started, and it just thrived into me getting into different involved at different levels, and just really got passionate about it. So the experience that I can really speak from is coming from a unit county, a unit county, because Center County is a unit county, which is a county essentially that if you're a member of the County Bar Association, you would automatically be a member of the Pennsylvania Bar Association. And from my perspective, if you are from a unit county, especially smaller counties like Center County, in a weird way, you have a huge advantage, because you can get involved within your local county, get access to a lot of those other things, where sometimes from individuals from larger counties, it's a little bit harder to have that type of access to the PBA, because there's lots of people that are also striving for those same positions. So if you're from a smaller county, sometimes you have more opportunities, but you just have to be willing, to say yes, show up, and be able to do those things. And the points that Stephanie and Hillary made about, it's a long game. That's another thing that I think, from a mental perspective, really helped me get involved in leadership capacities within the Pennsylvania Bar Association. Because when Susan first invited me to apply for the Conference of County Bar Leaders, at that time I was about 34 years old. So I was probably practicing maybe 5 or 6 years. Definitely not super confident, in my leadership abilities, especially at a statewide level like this. It's that imposter syndrome type of mentality where, like, can I do this? I'm not sure. Am I ready for this? I don't know. And really the perspective I took, and one of the reasons why I said yes to that, is that long game mentality. Is, if I take advantage of a certain leadership opportunity and I might have made mistakes or things like that, to me, I treat that as a learning experience. I'm not necessarily worried about, looking like a failure or anything like that, because my point is I want to learn from this particular mistake and then learn from it, don't repeat it. And then in 5 or 6 years, it's going to help me that much more in future leadership opportunities. And so that's the idea from my perspective in terms of what got me over the hump of just the anxieties, the unknowns, the uncertainties of whether or not I could be, in a leadership position. Another point I think that really helped me get into leadership is it was a slow process when I first started in the county level. It started as I mentioned, just showing up. I showed up, I participated in things, and I was able to be a leader in small roles, which didn't require running for office or anything like that. It was simply like organizing the softball events, as simple as that, is that's leadership right there. Like that's leadership, getting involved in something. You build connections with individuals, you build relationships with people. And then ultimately that's the way that sometimes you get invited to be on other committees is something that is just showing up, taking that leadership opportunity in that small area can then lead to exponential opportunities down the road. So that's the short, version of my leadership path, my leadership journey. And so with that said, I have a few questions that I kind of want to pose to Stephanie and Hillary, based on your pathway to leadership. And so what I was just talking about here was a barrier that I had. A barrier that I had was, that fear of, am I ready for this? Can I do this? Is that, do I feel, like I'm ready to put my name out there and take a leadership position? So I guess, Stephanie, I'll go to you first. Is what type of challenges or barriers did you experience, coming into your pathway, and how did you overcome that? Who did you look to for the support and guidance, to get through those times?
What I didn't mention is that I'm a government lawyer. So starting out as a young government lawyer, that was a challenge for me because being out of the office, because I wasn't gonna bring in business, or that wasn't a thing to say, go young lawyer, go out and meet people. And I just wanted to piggyback on what you said, Dan. Leadership is all about relationships. Making PBAs about relationships. That's the best way to get leadership positions, or those relationships. And not only are these relationships to build leadership positions, but you will find friends for life. You will look forward to going to every single meeting because you're like, your PBA family's going to be there. That's who you want to hang out with. It's so much fun. So back to my challenge. My biggest challenge was time out of the office as a young lawyer, as a new attorney, as I'm still trying to learn my position, and everyone wasn't cheering for me to be out of the office. But I have to say it was worth it. I used a lot of my own time and my own money, but it's worth it. The long game, that time didn't matter because I'm in a whole different position now. I not only did I've had the same job all this time, which has been great. I work with the legislature, but that was the biggest challenge for me, is time out of the office. So I say to young attorneys, take the time if you can, try to talk to your leadership to get them to buy into it and let them know it's worth it, because the leadership skills that I gained from the PBA, I wouldn't be sitting in the seat that I am today at my position did I not have those leadership opportunities through the PBA. So it's
Yeah,
worth it.
and kind of the word that speaks to me when you're saying that, is the title. Part of the title of this session is invest. That it's not only an investment from the PBA's side that they want to take from the Leadership Resource Committee to invest in its members to give you those pathways, but also, the time that you are taking to invest in the leadership is an investment in yourself. It's really an investment in the opportunities that you can have down the road. And so that's a really good point in terms of, that is a barrier, but ultimately it's an investment at the same time. You invested that time and energy, and it's really paid off for you, as you mentioned. Hillary, what about you? What kind of challenges or barriers did you have?
My biggest challenge was honestly myself, my confidence, and my ability to feel comfortable in this large group where I at first didn't know that many people, but Stephanie said it, like some of my best friends now are people that I met through PBA. And even now, I have not met Dan and Stephanie like in person yet. We've now been talking, and maybe I met each of them in passing, but like I'm so excited now to go to committee section day and see each of them and be like, oh my God, like it's
Yeah.
just we've been able to develop a relationship, and it just shows that even like Stephanie and I have both been part of the organization for 30 years. And Dan, I know you have, as maybe not quite as long as me and Stephanie, but my point is there's still people I haven't met. And I look forward to those new relationships. But as a new attorney sort of coming in, I always was like, oh, everybody's gonna know everybody, and what am I gonna do? And it's gonna be uncomfortable. But like as soon as you put yourself out there, you realize it's really not like that. Like you meet your people, you meet people in your group, you see one person that you were on a committee with. So that was a really big challenge for me to make myself feel comfortable. And part of what PBA leadership opportunities have given me is sort of more confidence in going into networking situations in general, right? It's given me so many opportunities to build those networking skills and learn how to build those relationships. And even just talking to Dan, I didn't realize this is like a random, like I didn't realize that Potter County was part of your zone, Dan. And I currently need an attorney in Potter County, and I was trying to figure out, well, who am I going to reach out to? And my next call after we're done is to shoot Dan an email and tell him what I need. But that's how you realize just how it affects your overall practice, whether you are a government lawyer or a private lawyer. You make relationships, and I had to get over that hump of my own, not feeling confident. And there are probably people who would not believe that I actually felt that way at one point in time. And, but it's where I started. So
Now that raises a question, I think, too, is because you mentioned that was a kind of a barrier or obstacle you had to get over, is that confidence to be in that room, so to speak. How would you recommend, from your experience, Hillary, going through that, like for someone who may feel that same way, like what would you recommend, or how would you recommend them approach coming up to a bar leader or a committee chair or something like
sure.
that to ask for more involvement?
I think, and one of the great things about the development of our leadership resource committee is that's our whole purpose. So, like, we are all accessible. The rest of the committee members are accessible. Anybody that's interested, come to one of us. And if you say, I'm interested in women in the profession, we'll connect you with one of the leaders in that group personally. And I think those personal connections, both from the attorneys who are interested in gaining leadership, once there are leaders of a committee, of a section, that know you're interested, they're going to take you up on that, right? We are always looking for more and new leaders in the section. They'll say, well, let's have you join this committee. I know they're looking for people. So I think it's most you can reach out to anybody within a section or committee if you're interested, but I think having this leadership resource committee and having the ability to come to one of us to say, hey, I'm really interested in getting involved, can you help me connect with something that's where my passion is, or I'm not really sure what I want to get involved in, and then have the conversation about, well, what do you like, what are your interests, what do you feel driven towards, that you'd be passionate about participating in, and then we can connect you with people that can help you with that.
Yeah, and 100%. That's, as Hillary mentioned, that's one of the main purposes of the Leadership Resource Committee, is to develop those, relationships and networks and referrals, for when you want to get into your leadership pathway. And Stephanie, I want to throw a question to you, kind of similarly situated to that, is, so in terms of like mentorship opportunities within the PBA, like what type of mentorship opportunities have you relied on in the past, or you're familiar with, whether it's like a BLI type of, event or something like that? What type of mentorship opportunities are you aware of within the PBA?
So I say BLI is a great opportunity. The Bar Leadership Institute is a great opportunity for new attorneys, and they're paired with mentors. I know we have a great mentorship program where we take in new attorneys and pair them. I think Minority Bar is working on that. There's very few or committees or sections that don't have mentorship programs. So the opportunity is out there, and we have our information out there that if we don't know someone, we can hook you up with someone who would share your interests. So PBA is huge with mentoring. I know Tevis, in terms of DEI, has a huge new mentoring program. We took law students, so even law students. So PBA is big with mentoring. And just like I said, being around people, the relationships you'll build. There are paired up mentorship programs that are more formal, but there's a lot of informal mentoring that happens. And you just, by showing up, you run into people, and it's a chance for you to find someone in your practice. Like Hillary said, someone who practices in your area. You can find them
And
through the PBA. You can hire people. You can get jobs through the PBA. Move along. References. So it's all available to you. As you can
I
tell, the
agree,
three of us
Stephanie.
love the PBA.
I agree, Stephanie, with what you said too about the informal relationships, because one of my mentors is not somebody that I worked with like at a firm, or wasn't my direct colleague. And it's somebody else who was a former chair of the PBA family law section, but we met through the family law section, and she became like the person I bounced stuff off of, the person, work related, leadership related, professionally, because I just developed that relationship through showing up at PBA.
I have to send a plug out for the PBA staff. The
Mm.
PBA staff, they are all knowledgeable, all knowing, they're professional, and they will help you with anything. I mean, I think I've relied on PBA staff so much for questions. I think they helped me a lot learning because they know it all and they know, everyone. They are very friendly. So don't hesitate to reach out to PBA, staff if you see them. They'll help you and guide you to where you need to be for the information you're looking for.
Yeah, and that's it. Just this Zoom series is a testament to that. Maddie's been really doing a lot behind the scenes. She unfortunately couldn't be here this afternoon, but Maria, Lauren, Susan, they've all kind of really helped to kind of get this together and help us get in front of you. And so that was one of the points that I was going to say as well, Stephanie, towards the end, was that was another reason that made me over time feel more and more comfortable, in leadership roles, is because PBA, it's your other partner. Yeah. And so I really felt that entire time I had a partner in leadership, and helping me through that and getting to where I need to be and be able to communicate what I needed to communicate. Was really, the staff was really, enabled me to do that. And Susan was our lead through the CCBL, and I cannot speak highly enough about that experience. And that, so anytime you talk to me about PBA involvement, I will always plug the CCBL because I love it so much. But that's an excellent point.
Sorry, if I could just add one thing. The other thing about the staff is when Hillary talked about, being nervous about stepping up, the staff understands if you take on a position, they understand you're a practicing attorney and you're a volunteer, because we're all volunteers and they appreciate that. So I think that is something you should know as a young leader stepping up, that you're going to have support, not only for your committee section, whatever, but you're also going to have staff support in a leadership position, which is important. That's what made me feel comfortable.
So much support.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And we know everyone here, your time is valuable, and so we really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us, over your lunch hour or wherever you are, to kind of hear from us. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, the real goal, for this initial launch of our Zoom series is to introduce and give more detail about the Leadership Resource Committee. So hope you learned a lot about the committee if you otherwise didn't know about the Leadership Resource Committee. It's a resource for you. So if you're excited about leadership or you're curious about leadership, please reach out to us. After the meeting, as I mentioned at the beginning, you'll get an email with a link and some PDFs of the flyers and information on how to reach anyone who's on the committee. I really encourage you to reach out because it is about building those relationships. And also, we also want to hear from you. That is one of the main goals. We wanted to share 3 diverse kind of perspectives of how you can get into leadership within the PBA. Hopefully, this is a small little example of that. And over time, with these Zoom sessions, we'll dive into more detail about very specific types of pathways. This was more of the introduction.